Man, why is it so hard to find a gift for less than $20?
You questioned exasperatedly while eyeing the gift-wrapped boxes that sat in the less than colorful gift bags Bakugou carried.
Because you can't,
spat Bakugou with a huff.
We agreed to ignore the rule. Remember?
Yeah, but up to what price threshold?
Bakugou glanced towards you skeptically, exasperated himself over your concerns for a decision already made a week prior. You nervously chuckled, taking your question as nothing but rhetorical before Bakugou returned his sights back onto the road. After a long, hard year with so many ups and downs, the oddest encounters and threatening experiences in your line of work, Bakugou and yourself trudged through the thick powdered snow that layered atop what once was pavement. Every year the roads would close due to the amount of snowfall, finding more people traveling by foot and finding the paths littered with footprints from the city's citizens. The crunch of it beneath your feet was always an exciting sound, knowing that your weights on your ankles were responsible for it. Still, you hugged your arm around Bakugou's while he led you through the streets, the route familiar in your mind.
Can't believe $20 was the price,
mumbled Bakugou after a moment of contemplation.
Doesn't that extra know that we're not in high school anymore?
You can't blame them for setting the bar.
You commented, excusing the idea.
Like you said, we agreed to ignore that, but I'm curious who you got from the raffle to make that call.
All you were met with was that signature stare, silent and judging, yet it did not faze you much.
Come on, one hint? Anything?
You asked with an attempt at persuasion.
What's the point of Secret Santa if you're asking me for the secret?
Snapped Bakugou with a sneer, still with his red eyes set on you. You eyed him back, staring into his gaze as if you could read his thoughts, gauging him with very little to draw from those eyes of his.
It's either me or Kirishima,
you inferred, still peering at him. The silence in between was comical while you kept your ground patiently. Not one blink from Bakugou made for a response to your guess, but the slight chuckle that almost caught in your throat soon bubbled over through your nostrils before you laughed.
What?
Uttered Bakugou, staring down at your laughter.
It's like drawing blood from a stone.
You answered in between your chuckles.
You have the best poker face when you're not angry.
No matter how much you tried to keep your amusement in check, it continued to spill over, only held by your palms that covered your smile. Bakugou still watched you, his lips curling into a smirk at the sight of his happiness bubbling over. After the trouble both of you had gotten yourselves into after the charity ball, it was a refreshing end of the year to see you filled with joy, no longer weighed down by whatever insecurities held you back. He still held you close, with your arms still linked in his before the familiar shape of someone's home caught his eye ahead. Its lights shining brightly through the packed snow along the quiet street.
I'd be surprised what you got for soy face,
he commented gruffly in the cold, halting your laughing fit momentarily.
How do you know I'm Sero's Secret Santa?
You questioned, flabbergasted.
Your choice of gift wrapping is as loud as raccoon eyes.
One look into the gift bags, and upon seeing the differences between his gift and yours, you realized the folly in your decision. Surely enough, you color coordinated the gift wrap to match what you thought were Sero's color schemes. More so his hero outfit, if anything. It was a simple choice, but you also thought it was visually appealing, and that Sero would immediately recognize which of the presents was his. Sadly, that didn't mean Bakugou wouldn't have figured that out. You chuckled embarrassingly at his insight and observation, only earning a huff from the blonde before you realized you've reached your destination, standing by the small gate of Kirishima's home. Upon reaching the front door of Kirishima's small home, the both of you wiped your slightly soiled shoes from the snow and rang his doorbell, recognizing the chirp before the door swung open with a wave of heat biting into your cold clothes. Eijiro Kirishima, clad in a dark red jumper and reindeer ears to your glee and Bakugou's slight disgust, greeted the both of you at the door with his signature grin.
Hey, you guys are early!
He chirped with a hefty laugh.
We're on time, shitty hair.
Corrected Bakugou.
Merry Christmas, Kirishima.
You followed after knowingly, while receiving a ruffle of your hair from the host, something he had always done ever since high school.
Merry Christmas, you two. Come on in. Thumper started making the eggnog.
Invited Kirishima, stepping into his home while Bakugou and yourself removed your shoes by the door. The heat from inside Kirishima's home warmed you up quickly before you removed your coat, placing it on the small coat rack that held only one other coat at its end. Bakugou was right to assume your promptness, finding that none of the others had arrived and that both of you were the first. The smell of Christmas dinner was tantalizing. Mostly meat, but you didn't think less of the thought, knowing Kirishima's inclination towards that choice. Bakugou, now without his long coat, stepped foot into the hallway with the gift bag still on his person, only to catch your eye staring at him. He watched you glance at the bags, then at him, your lips parting with barely a breath before,
No.
He plainly answered without an utterance from you, walking through the open hall towards Kirishima's lounge. Shrugging after your last attempt to discover more about the Secret Santa plot, you followed Bakugou, noticing a scarce few Christmas furnishings around the home until you turned into the lounge, finding that Bakugou stopped before what looked like an impressively large pillow and blanket fort, set up from floor to ceiling. You stared at the sight, marveled at the sheer size, as did Bakugou, whom more so was confused. The top of it was tacked to the ceiling, looking more like a tent than a fort, but decorated in some fairy lights and strung together with holly, mistletoe, baubles, and tinsel. It was almost reminiscent of a Christmas tree.
Yeah, isn't it cool?
Piped a voice from behind the both of you, finding Kirishima with 2 mugs in hand of freshly made eggnog.
Thumper and I thought it'd be fun. What are you, 9?
Questioned Bakugou, irate and exasperated at the ridiculous sight of it.
I think it's impressive,
you commented.
Don't encourage him. You should try it.
Responded Kirishima.
Don't encourage them.
That laughter returned, only brought on tenfold with Kirishima before he handed the mugs of eggnog to the both of you. The eggnog was warm and comforting, yet you wondered what kind of concoction lay in wait while you warmed your hands around it, spotting Bakugou staring at it a little untrusting.
Is this as strong as Midoriya's?
You asked with some hesitation.
Even more so. At least I was told.
Cheerfully replied Kirishima with that signature grin.
Are they trying to kill us?
Questioned Bakugou, eyeing his friend with a scrutinizing glare.
At least not quickly!
Called a voice from the kitchen, earning a slight chuckle from you before you cleared your throat of the threatening bubble that would spill into laughter again.
Bonbon's going to wipe the floor with these!
Agreed another familiar voice while you peered towards the kitchen, spotting the familiar head of pink hair. Ashido waved towards you while you reciprocated with a small wave yourself, turning your eye to Bakugou to gauge his reaction. That look in his eyes wasn't as festive as you would have hoped.
Come on, Bakugou. You like him,
stated Kirishima matter-of-factly, only earning a deep scoff from the blonde before he took a sip of the eggnog in his hands. The thought crossed your mind about Bakugou's behavior towards Kirishima's partner, now having known them as a couple for some time now through the course of the year. He had been extremely terse and combative about them, always calling them an extra, which you've learned over the years was the common Bakugou lexicon for some random person in his life, normally seen as a lesser to him. It was upsetting to think that Bakugou didn't approve of Kirishima's partner, despite Kirishima's optimistic opinion of his close friend, who ironically convinced him to go for it. Then again, Bakugou had always surprised you. Somehow. Eventually, one pair arrived for the festivities, surprisingly being met by Sero's +1, who stood awkwardly amongst the circle of friends and literally stayed by Sero's side for most of the night. You figured they were shy and not used to the company of others, attempting to approach them warmly and openly without making any sudden movements. Jiro soon made an entrance, but sadly the last couple was a no-show. You pouted at the thought of not being able to see Kaminari outside of all the craziness, but Kirishima assured that the man had informed him beforehand of his cancellation. Sadly, with no real excuse why. You concluded nonchalantly that this was Kaminari everyone was talking about, and maybe he had forgotten to buy presents for Secret Santa. Aside from the mathematical conundrum with the gift giving, it was time for the main event to start, with everyone now seated within the large pillow fort that Kirishima and his partner were extremely proud of. It was no surprise for Kirishima to offer the first Secret Santa opening to Bakugou, handing him a box that was gift-wrapped haphazardly and tied only by ribbon. No surprise that Kirishima was Bakugou's Secret Santa by the look of it, watching the present be torn apart and finding a few clothing items ironically neatly packaged together. You smiled at the predictability of Kirishima's gifts.
I could buy my own ties, shitty hair.
Scoffed Bakugou while he stared at the red and black ensemble in the box, including black and gold cufflinks.
Even if it's part of your bridegroom's outfit?
Retaliated Kirishima with a chirpy tone. Bakugou's shoulders stiffened, irate at the thought, but also rendered speechless. It earned a low chuckle around the fort, soon resulting in a bit of teasing from his friends and also a barking Bakugou afterwards.
Alright, my turn!
Piped Kirishima's partner while they quickly collected a large box from the pile of presents within the fort. They scanned their eyes on all guests until you noticed them land on you, catching you by surprise with that happy grin plastered on their face.
Happy Secret Santa!
With ease, they handed the large box over to you, surprised by the size alone before you took it from their hands and laid it in your lap. You eyed the large box, curious what would cost $20 to fill such a giant thing. Even grabbing it from your Secret Santa made you question immediately due to the weight of it. At first you thought it was a joke of some kind, imagining it to resemble a babushka doll and grow smaller with every flip of the lid. You chuckled inwardly if that was the case, given your Secret Santa.
Come on, open it!
Chirped Kirishima's partner, their energy almost bouncing in anticipation.
How the hell did this happen?
Questioned Bakugou, eyeing Kirishima suspiciously, considering the nature of assigning gifties in the first place. Kirishima only shrugged, genuinely not knowing how this became the setup for the night and only earning an exasperated grumble from the blonde. You began to unwrap the gift, pulling the ribbon and tearing into the wrapping. Pulling the lid from the box, you saw something sheen against the Christmas lights that sparkled within the makeshift blanket fort, eyeing the design of 4 bracelets. Well, 2 bracelets and 2 anklets. Upon closer inspection, it became clear what they truly were, noticing the design and make of the items similar to pairs you already own.
I didn't know what colors you'd like, so I was inspired by your hero outfit when I got it custom made.
explained Kirishima's partner while you collected one of the bracelets from the box. They were weights, similar to the support items you used in your line of work, with some modifications made.
After what happened and everything, I figured maybe you'd like some control. I was told some accelerometer whatchamacallit was built into them, so it should work with your movements more organically than the ones you already have. There's a manual in there somewhere.
It took you by surprise knowing how much support items alone would set back the usual paycheck in a pro hero's line of work. Not that this deterred you from ever upgrading pieces of your gear, but never had you imagined anyone other than Bakugou would pay close attention to the needs of your work, let alone your quirk, for that matter. You turned to Kirishima and his partner, who sat opposite Bakugou and yourself, watching their smiles brim wide. For a long time you understood the friendship between Bakugou and Kirishima, noticing how the both of them were attentive to each other. However, you felt something kindred, reaching a hand out to Kirishima's partner with a smile.
This is so thoughtful, thank you!
You chirped, earning that happy smile from them.
Try them on, and maybe we could test them out when you get an opportunity.
They suggested.
If they're faulty, I'm coming for you personally, you extra.
Retorted Bakugou, feeling his antagonistic presence beside you.
Relax, Bakugou, they're Edaten approved.
Reassured Kirishima. You sighed heavily in slight surrender of Bakugou's behavior, leaning back into him while his arm encircled behind you. He scoffed in response, his lips turning more so into a pout before you felt him deeply take a breath to relax from the outburst. He was next around the circle of gift-giving, eyeing his gift bag not far from where he placed them. Your curiosity piqued, now finally able to discover who his giftee was, after your attempts to find the truth from him. Bakugou leaned towards his gift bag, pulling it from the small pile and eyeing it for a while. Everyone else sat in slight anticipation, curious of who had the luck of being drawn by Bakugou as their secret Santa, but also wondering what gift he would have gotten for the $20 threshold given the size of the bag he held. You watched him for a moment, still staring at his poker face once more before his red eyes landed across the way, swinging the bag immediately into the face of Kirishima's partner.
Merry Christmas, extra.
He muttered, his eyes still on them until he looked away, slightly embarrassed, towards you. Wide-eyed, you stared back into his steely gaze in surprise. For all that he spoke about Kirishima's partner and how he treated them, he ultimately approved with that look in his eye, knowing that it was he who made the decision to ignore the $20 rule in the first place. You smiled warmly, knowing better to keep your words unspoken while you placed a comforting hand on his lap. It was moments like these that held a deep meaning between him and yourself, surprised and yet expected at the same time. You had always given Bakugou the benefit of the doubt, cherishing his warm and caring side in the harshest ways he could express them. Eventually, the gift bag was taken from his hands while Kirishima's partner, though struck with surprise themselves, happily ripped into the gift. It all drowned in the moment while you glanced into Bakugou's eyes, as he did with yours, keeping this world private in his thoughts and his feelings.
Love you, Katsuki.
You mouthed with a whisper while grabbing his knee with a reassuring shake. All he did was pull you into his chest while his head laid atop yours, cuddling you as if you were his shield, or rather, how a child cuddles a comfort object, like a security blanket, or a teddy bear. You felt his lips press against you, almost hiding away his embarrassment, but also wanting to be near you, despite you sitting right beside him. You warmed against his body, immediately wrapping your arms around his torso before the raucous cheers and excitement caught your ear. happily watching the joy that spread around the four.